Alright guys, Scrappy again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. It's now less than a month until Modern Warfare 3 officially launches, and we finally have our 9th official roster confirmation of the off-season so far. Seattle Surge revealing the roster they've wanted, it seems, for quite some time. Controversial one, to say the very least. Questionable on paper. Definitely intrigued to hear your thoughts on that one in the comment section below. But there are some interesting storylines around the team regardless, especially on the OpTic Curse after what we've seen over the last couple of seasons of the CDL. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. This is not the official announcement picture here, but it's pretty damn good from Kimchi and everything that he's put together. Now, we found some interesting roster confirmations over the last couple of months. The New York Subliners, no doubt, is probably number one. Controversial, right? Getting rid of the team that won the World Championship. Well, given 3 of the 4. Priestahh goes. Sib comes in. The Subliners, whatever you want to say here, as Lucero puts together. Also, the Miami Heretics recently confirmed their team, and they actually played with all of their 6 guys. So just to clarify, MettalZ is going to coach this team, and one of these 5, so that's Spanish MettalZ 6. So, you know, back in the day, there was always talk about that, but then MettalZ retired, the Spanish one. MettalZ stayed around, but now they're both retired, and MettalZ is coaching again, and Zinni, of course, is doing the watch party. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. I know there was obviously, you know, a bit of banter between those two back in the day, but MettalZ, of course, back in the league in some respects now, and one of these 5 will start on the bench. It's difficult to exactly say who. It probably depends when the game comes out. They'll probably run some scrims. The good thing that Heretics have done here, though, Miami Heretics, former Mutineers, of course, and there's been potentially many other changes to cities to come. Even we think Seattle themselves might well move over to Vancouver. We know what Carolina have done. At some point, and I'm sure Phil Spencer or whoever's making the decisions at Microsoft is going to be like, this doesn't make any sense. Let's just go back to using the team names as it typically was and as it is, let's say, in Halo at the present day. But still, that's a topic for another day that we've covered before. What I like about what they've done here is at least they have 5. They have a substitute ready. We don't know which sub it's going to be, but they have someone in mind. One of these 5 will be starting the season on the bench. They might change that around. Other teams haven't made that decision yet. They'll bring in a substitute further down the line, or they'll just make their coach their substitute, which is a way to save some cash, which maybe is what a lot of these teams need to be doing as well. And then maybe it's better to wait for the start of the season just to see who's actually good and who's not in the challenger side before you sign your sub. Makes sense, but at the same time, if you're looking for European players, getting those visas isn't necessarily so easy. Makes sense to lock it in early. Now, speaking of Surge, they've done a fair few teasers over the last couple of days. This was the most recent one they did, and it was kind of interesting, right? We had something from Toronto, Ontario here on this file, which, you know, of course, iLLeY's from, well, he's in Brampton, right? So kind of nearby Toronto, Ontario. We also had another tweet here that said, remember when you could have sold Pred minus 750k, should have took it when you had the chance. And it's funny they put these tweets up because I guess they're trying to like roast these fans for taking the mick out of them, but you know, this fan makes, I think, a pretty valid point. If they'd have sold Pred when they got the chance, they could have funded this team for the entire season. They could have paid all the salary, you know what I mean? But that's not the case. So, yeah, still questionable management decisions at Seattle Surge, but nothing new there. We know that Octane has said that for years and said that it was a complete shambles when he was finally let go. So Vanessa here, and I'm sure she means well. I imagine she's been creating these graphics for the Seattle Surge. And I find it's difficult, right? Because I know the fans were roasting Surge for this, because it's like, well, we've known this roster for a long time. Why are you hyping it up as if it's wow, blowing, absolutely mind-blowing stuff, this roster, when we've kind of known what it's going to be for some time? That's not the graphic designer's fault. That's not the fault of the social media team that's putting this stuff out. Maybe the organization should think about this a little bit more. And, you know, I don't know, because the fans get frustrated about trying to hype up something that you know, but it's like, is it just better to drop it? Do you want to do some hype stuff? You know, and then, like, Vanessa's trying to say, oh, it's kind of like the fans' fault for not liking it. But it's like, you know, obviously it's frustrating that your work gets clowned on, but you can't really blame the fans. I mean, especially if you're an organization like Seattle Surge, you should be grateful for every fan you've got, to be honest, after the way things have been run over the last couple of years. So, eventually they say T-minus 1 hour, and they then confirm their team. Now, I've got to say, the way they confirm this roster, I guess I'll put it kind of full screen so you guys can see what's going on. They went next level on this one, given the fact that not the players aren't actually there. I guess Rambo was there, or maybe Rambo wasn't there because you couldn't actually tell that it was quite him. Well, anyway, we'll see in a second whether it could be. But these aren't, you know, they hired actors for this, is what I'm trying to say. I guess they haven't got all the players together yet to do the announcement, so sure, so they did something instead of that. They hired these actors in and did this very well-produced piece of content about, you you know, trying to find these guys, you know, wanted men, and they come up with the answers. I mean, look how well made this video is. Like, you've got to respect it. But at the same time, does it not remind you of those stories that Octane said about when the CDL started, they went to some facility and they shot a video, like a really, they spent like $1 million, was it $1 million on this video? $300,000 on that? I think it was 300K, I don't know, I'm making it up at this point. But Joey Nubsy had like, you know, they had a bomb strapped to him and then Octane had to defuse it. And they had this, like, incredible video. Anyway, there's the official announcement of the guys that, well, you can tell who they are, even if they don't have the players quite there in the setting itself. But, yeah, it reminds me a bit of that when Seattle spent huge money. And then you guys probably remember that that video got denied by the CDL. And Octane said that, yeah, the CDL has said, no, you're not allowed to do that anymore. Unfortunately, guys, that was $300,000 straight down the drain. And, yeah, I mean, fair play for Seattle thinking, all right, we're going to go next level on this video, and like the production quality here is mega, but you just gotta wonder where the money is being spent, because, you know, does it matter? Like, they put all this work into this video, does anyone really care? I don't know. I just think, like, do people care much more about this than if they just did a tweet with you know, a picture of the team, which is obviously not ideal. But yeah, obviously someone got paid a lot of money to produce this video, and fair enough. And here is the team confirmation. I like that they're putting in the commitment, but it's like, you know, maybe the money went in the wrong places. But regardless what you think about that, this is the roster. And, you know, as I say, could they have just tweeted this out that Jake Hale and his designer Taylor put together a little while ago? iLLeY, Arcetes, Hook, and aBeZy. Of course, we saw Rambo there as the head coach as well. I guess we'll begin discussing this team with the new blood in aBeZy, right? Fresh into the league, rookie player, was undoubtedly, in most people's perceptions, the rookie of the year last year. It's also fair play, because I think aBeZy is 22, 23. Like, he's not an 18-year-old brand new, and I think it's cool to see, because, you know, it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to be 18 and cracked necessarily to get into the league. If you're really good and you've become really good in your early 20s, still very possible to get into the league. And Doug Sintermartin's still going to be grinding out at, you know, 28, 29, whatever Doug is today. Now, aBeZy was linked. Now, in fairness, this was Zuma linked, so Zuma sources, which are maybe somewhat questionable this particular season, to Los Angeles Thieves. There were rumors that maybe aBeZy was going to go instead of Cammy or something like that. That never happened, and it turned out to be Ghosty, Cammy, Afro, and Jonas Eves, as was initially thought. And now aBeZy is joining this team. Now, in the initial article that JKL put out in the early part of August as to what they were planning to do here, which is, as you can tell, quite a while ago at this point, the theory was they were going to be putting aBeZy on the SMG. Sources have stated aBeZy is likely to be on the sub role, which, you know, so iLLeY could also do it as well. This is crazy, and as Infinity says, he was like the best main AR, really, in the Challenger side last year. He played in a similar way, similar stats to Scrappy, really. That was the big comparison. You look at his numbers, you look at his pace, stuff like that. It wasn't too dissimilar to what Scrappy was doing the previous year in Vanguard. So people expect him to either come in as, you know, a main or as a flex. Either could work, but, you know, would you put Scrappy on your team as an SMG? I mean, sure, he could probably do a good job, but it's like, why would you do that? Scrappy's coming in as an absolute dominant force on the AR. Surely it's logical to put him on that role. Same thing with Fame. I think Fame is a good player, but Fame came into that Minnesota Rocket team last season running an AR when he's been using a sub. When they finally put him on the sub, he looked pretty good. But that was no doubt highly questionable, that decision to put Fame on an AR when he was really an SMG player, and it didn't do his career any favours, and their team ended up being a bit better when they actually put him on the role that he plays. So, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, aBeZy really should be an AR player. But you've got Arcetes there, and then you've got iLLeY there. I like the pickup, though. I think it's good. I think they might have gone... They could have got Lins as well, who did go to Minnesota Rocker. So I thought, honestly, aBeZy and Lins were going to come as a duo. There's also Cobra, and, you know, there could have been some other names they brought over. So aBeZy's coming in with, you know, somebody else from the team before. But then again, aBeZy, Belgian player, speaks French, right? And Rambo speaks French. So it does make sense in terms of integrating him, and he's going to need to fry, no doubt. I think they should probably put him on the AR and put iLLeY on the SMG. That's probably how I would do it. Unless aBeZy really can run a sub at a high level, as he probably can do a good job, but is he going to be as impactful as if he's on an AR? Quite possibly not. So that's the risk, especially if the striker, which is the SMG as it stands, is the best gun in the game. There could be maps where 3 SMGs are needed, 3 SMGs are viable. This team is not set up to be incredibly versatile. I think they need the meta to go in a kind of AR heavy way that will favor these guys. If there's 2 ARs every map, if not sometimes 3, these guys will be fine. If it's flipped and the other way around, then that's where you start to get into issues. And to be fair, aBeZy in the past, let's even say Modern Warfare 19, the 2020 season, he did a bit of flexing. You know, he could run the MP5. I mean, anyone could run the MP5, it was so good. And he could run the M4. So, you know, it's still possible that some flex play could come into action here, but fundamentally, they need aBeZy to do a great job because the rest of the team is probably not going to be incredibly high on the slaying factor. Last season was underwhelming for pretty much all of these players apart from Hook, and we'll get on to Hook in a second and what he could do for these guys. aRST's was a big point of controversy, especially even very recently when JurNii said that he belongs, well, he didn't say aRST specifically, but he said some of those guys belong in federal jail for the way they behaved last year. And the general perception was that aRST's was not the best teammate to be around last year, and I get it. He was dropped from FaZe, went to Los Angeles Guerrillas, was meant to be getting a bag, then the organization was collapsing around him. He was nearly going to OpTic, that then fell through. He was stuck on the team, not having a good time, but didn't perform very well. Now, he is a 2-time world champion, 9 championship wins in his history. That has got him a spot, I would say, over Assault, who was his AR duo on Guerrillas, but also his friendship with iLLeY, right? They wanted to be a duo for some time. That's now going to be the case. So I would like to see these guys back to form, back playing well again, and hopefully they can get the best out of each other and really commit to this season, because that was a question with aRST's last year. And here's iLLeY, who again played briefly this most recent season, didn't have a great year. Ever since that thumb injury, hasn't quite looked the same. I mean, back in MW19 was very valuable for the Dallas Empire team that won champs, had that really good championship Sunday at Major 1 in 2022 that OpTic Texas won. Since then, I know the thumb injury wasn't quite the same. Still was doing good in Search and Destroy last year, but you look at these numbers and it's not lighting the world on fire, right? And this is where I think aBeZy needs to step up, and so does Hook, no doubt about it. Rambo needs to get, and the rest of the team need to get the best out of Hook, because Hook's performance on LA Guerrillas and Hook's performance, especially online for OpTic, 2 vastly different players. Hook can be really impactful when you get the most out of him, but there's always the questions with Hook about the decision making and, you know, issues on LAN and like translating online to LAN and stuff like this that have still continued to plague Hook. So he did a great job for OpTic this past season, no doubt. He's got the history with iLLeY. They, as a duo, have a pretty good record together for sure. He's got the history with Rambo, of course, obviously in the Dallas Empire days, in Cold War especially. Didn't go quite so well. They ended up breaking up, and there was all the talk about the minimap and all this, but still, they did win champs together back in 2020 with iLLeY, so there is some history here. But is that history and potential upside going to be enough to make this team actually good? Because you look at some of the other teams that are formed, they have usually more firepower than this team on paper, and they have roles that make more sense than this team on paper. So yeah, it's like you look at Los Angeles Thieves and people say, well, Cammy, he's not as good as he was before. But that's one player on a team of 3 other guys that looked pretty good and looked pretty solid last season, definitely, and Cammy was still okay in his own right. You look at this Seattle team, you need iLLeY to have a big step up in performance. You need aRST's especially to have a big step up in performance, and you probably need more from Hook, especially in a LAN setting, than he got last year. And you need aBeZy to come in his first year in the Pro League and deliver a stellar performance. I mean, even the likes of HyDra, who's right now the best player in the world and was simply unbelievable at the end of last season, his first year in the league, he was good, but he wasn't like absolute superstar level good, and it's pretty rare that a player comes in their first year and absolutely dominates. There's a good few examples. Simp, Black Ops 4, even end of like Shotzzy, Modern Warfare 2019 was a thing in the 2020 season, but nonetheless, I think Seattle are counting on many things to go right. Like, they need to land on reds on the roulette wheel like 4 times in a row, and then this team might be pretty alright, pretty good, maybe, you know, mixing it up for top 4. If that doesn't happen and they don't get the version they need of iLLeY, of aRST's, and maybe even of Hook as well, and even aBeZy playing at a solid but not superstar level, then they're going to struggle a bit. I still think this team is going to be a contender to make the World Championship, but I just can't see that they're going to be crazy good unless they really do become a team that is significantly superior to the sum of their parts. That is possible. If they get the best out of each other as players, they can be better than they look. And maybe Rambo can mastermind that. And then you've got to consider the whole OpTic Curse thing. Whatever value you put in the OpTic Curse, that's up to you. But for the last several years, there have been players. This really begins in the Black Ops 4 season. Crimsix was dropped, won champs next year. The next year goes around, Arstees leaves, Chicago Huntsman goes to FaZe, wins champs the next year. The next year, OpTic get rid of Envoy, goes to Thieves, win champs the next year. The next year after that, Sender leaves OpTic, gets dropped, didn't pay enough money, whatever you want to say, goes to New York, wins champs the next year. So, you know, if you want to read anything into that OpTic Curse, this is the team that's going to somehow win champs, or at least some of these players are, because Rambo was there last year, had the drama with Dashy, that's an exciting storyline. iLLeY and TacticalRab were both on that team, they're both gone. So it's either Surge or it's either Ghosty on Los Angeles Thieves. Those are the two teams that can potentially keep that OpTic Curse going in terms of someone gets dropped, wins champs, if these teams stay the same. I'm not convinced personally that is going to happen, but look, as I say, there's always a chance, and Karma did say this on stream a while ago that this team is better than it appears, and I kind of get why. They have accolades between them for sure, but as far as I'm concerned, if I was building this team, I would be concerned that there are simply too many risks that they're taking here that all need to pay off if they're to be good. So yeah, definitely intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Pretty long video, but we're going to leave it there for today. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.